Oh my gosh, guys, if you guys haven't realized, it's freaking opening day tomorrow. MLB baseball season starts. And if you haven't done your fantasy draft, if you waited till the very last minute, you're not alone. My fantasy draft starts approximately in 52 minutes. Within 1 hour, you can always make sure to check your actual draft spot. So I can actually go do that right now. And if you haven't done said thing, figure out where you're drafting so you can go ahead and get ahead of your peers. This is going to be very fast. Join your draft now. This isn't going to be about the draft. This is me just figuring out what spot in the draft I am. It's to sort of kind of figure out what I'm going to be. All right in the middle. Number 5, 10-person draft. Pretty standard scoring. Bonus second base, middle infield spot, and a corner infield spot, either first base or third base. 5 outfielders, 9 pitchers, or maybe even more, and 3 bench spots. So let's go over here to this handy dandy file that I just keep adding things to. Currently, there's 10 people on strangers. I don't freaking know who you are. Anonymous Elephant, if that's your real name. Anyways, if you've waited till the very last minute, I've run through kind of my cheat sheet. I've put down all of these freaking notes about all of these players to kind of help you, obviously, like through your draft process. But if you that's not super helpful, I also kind of created a perfect draft tab. I've done drafts at this point 100 plus times, to maybe 200 times. Every time that I go take a massive dump, I essentially start a mock draft, and I don't ever quit them unless I actually put on auto draft and it selects me Alex Bregman or Kyle Schwarber, and then I quit because I get mad, and that's not people. Anyways, I'm getting distracted. This very, very quick video. This tab right here, perfect draft. Obviously, I want you guys to have this tab next to you, while you draft, so that you can basically see, what who's available coming up, forecasting kind of what we've done in the past videos. As people are drafting, you can constantly be adding these people to your queue. And obviously, this is just my opinion. You're welcome to deviate from the set plan. But I have gone through this so many times at this point. This is all not new information. But what is new information? If you wanted to get more of a snapshot kind of thought process of kind of like where I'm coming from and kind of like the same over and over again players that I'm going after in order, I just put together, again, kind of like an ideal snapshot roster of kind of how I come away with just about every draft. All of these players on this list are players that I have highlighted in green and or probably also bold and have this specific cyan color next to it that basically indicate that this is an extra special player, and I have to come away with them or else I'll maybe cry. So going over to the perfect draft, I am just going to go through each position. William Contreras and Tyler Stevenson, I think, are the best values at the catcher position, usually a very, very slim pickings position. But in this case, this year, catcher, I think, is one of the deeper positions in compared to years past. First base, I've talked about a billion times. You have to take a first baseman in the first 3 rounds, essentially. That first round, if you have a favorite player that you essentially, if you are a Yankees fan and you want to have Aaron Judge on your roster and he is available, by all means, please take him, because you want to have a good experience. You want to be able to watch your players succeed on the field and your team succeed at the same time. That's kind of like really great. Obviously, I'm a Reds fan and things aren't going super awesome for us. It's getting better. We're on the uphill now. Like our deepest dive, I think, was last year. But in the past, when I've had players that are really, really successful on my own team, everything becomes more fun. So understand that. But in the first 3 rounds, after pick 34, if you do not get a first baseman, you are out of luck, to say the least. And if you are in this league, in a league like I just showed you a second ago, I need to actually grab a first baseman and another corner infielder spot. I might take 2 in a row just as trade bait, trade value. Though I don't think that Paul Goldschmidt or Matt Olson necessarily are going to have as well. I think Matt Olson's going to have a better year. I don't think that Paul Goldschmidt can reproduce exactly what he did last year. But if I get even 2 of those top 34, first base within those top 34, then I can absolutely gain a ton of value from other teams who just didn't get the memo about first base. So Going back to the positions, second base, man, I have really dug myself into a hole. I get to around the 130 spot, actually in real person, around the early 100s. I just go ahead and reach for Jazz. Jazz Chisholm is a top 40, top 30 pick on just about every other website that's not ESPN, because Tristan Cockcroft is a Cockcroft. I don't know. He's just he does what he can, but he has missed the ball on this completely 2 years in a row now. Jazz Chisholm is currently ranked at the 158 spot, but he is way more valuable than that. So in my drafts, I come away with him literally every single time. My rosters, if you notice, this is a roster that I actually drafted online earlier this week, and it is going to literally look the exact same as the rosters I've kind of practiced with over time. So just over time, repetition. Shortstop, I've kind of determined that I either want one very early that falls. I can't afford to take one in the first really 3 picks unless your favorite player is Trey Turner, whatever. But it seems like Bobby Witt's, especially in the 10 people league, Bobby Witt's falling to the number 4 pick. So that's kind of my ride or die plan. And if not, obviously I can always fall back to Jeremy Pena at the 195 spot, and love Jeremy Pena given that Altuve and Michael Brantley are hurt. He's going to lead off every day, hit 250 plus, 250 batting average plus, steal 25 bases at least, and hit around 25 home runs. So really good values there. Third base. I always try to load up on third baseman. Third basemen I swear, are just overall power pack, best athletes on each team. Obviously, your center fielders and your shortstops a lot of times are kind of the hybrid guys. But if you're just looking for, that all-encompassing important power, you really need to get at least one first baseman within the top 49 picks. But I am generally a kind of with first baseman philosophy too, going after a couple of them just because they are so valuable, and there aren't a ton outside of the top 50. So another fairly shallow position, but not as shallow as first base. Outfield, I don't touch it until around the 100 spots. And again, this is kind of like how my outfield has turned out every single practice draft, is basically a combination of these players. And obviously my perfect draft would be the number 1 players kind of tiered down as I go through it, according to kind of where they're at and kind of where they've been falling. And then obviously if those people aren't available at that particular time, then these are my fallbacks that I've also been happy and very, very happy to come away with, per se. So there's a lot of value in outfield. Obviously, Taylor Ward, Jake McCarthy, and Oscar Gonzalez are not going to compete at the same level as a Mookie Betts, per se. But there's absolutely the opportunity for them to be top 25, top 15 players at their position. Whereas the players again like first base and even second base, shortstop, these other positions, you can't find a top 5 position player that deep in the draft. So I really, really like outfield this year. It gives a lot of flexibility and a lot of optimism and hope, per se. And then utility spot, Jordan Walker, I'm going after in every single draft. He's up to 167 slot now. He's risen a lot over just the last couple of days. He's currently ranked as a third baseman, which is really valuable, but he's going to play every day in the outfield. So on the 11th day, the 11th game of St. Louis, he's going to get the outfield tag. And at that point, your roster becomes more flexible in the third round. So your third pick, really, regardless of where you're at, you're most likely going to take a pitcher. You kind of need to take a pitcher. And if you didn't take a pitcher in the first 2 rounds, third round, you have to take one of these guys. They're every single time they've been available between Dylan Cease, Spencer Strider, and Brandon Woodruff. If you're just looking for overall quality per inning, and now further stretched out set of innings pitched, really, really good quality guys. On even like that next tier, 1 or 2 picks after that, I'm usually stretching for Christian Javier with around that next pick, especially depending on what happened to Bobby Witt. If Bobby Witt fell, which is seems like what he's doing, because people just don't pay attention to baseball. They don't understand the prowess of what Bobby Witt and his value is. Christian Javier, a lot of time is coming to me at my number 5 pick as my number 2 starting pitcher. I think Christian Javier and Dylan Cease are going to be be neck and neck for the AL Cy Young Award winners. But obviously, if Christian Javier is not available at that spot, I think that Julio Urias, who's always an ERA, champion, kind of like guy competing for the lowest ERA in the NL, Zach Allen, Framber Valdez are comparable, not as high of ceiling, but really, really quality guys that you can grab instead of Javier just happens to not be there with your fifth pick. And just kind of, again, as you go down the line, these are my priority 1 and priority 2 players, just kind of like depending on where they've been. With these last 2 picks, I want you guys to understand that the bench slots in fantasy baseball, you never want to have position players in your bench unless you're kind of forced to, but like that's a weird situation. And my one of my leagues did that this year because they changed the rules every year, and I don't understand. They don't tell anyone, they just do it. So with those final 2 picks, there's a lot of pitching late in the draft. So while you're getting towards the end, if you have your everyone's drafting 25 players, there's 10 people, there's 12 people in the draft, be kind of cognizant, maybe reach a little early in the 180s, the 190s, go ahead and reach for Bryce Harper, understanding that he might, be back earlier than even like the very end of May. Obviously that's a huge value. He's always ranked in the top 10. I think he's more of a top 25 player, but if you can give me a top 25 player and I'm waiting a month or 2, and I'll plan on being on first place anyways, I think that's a pretty awesome add and or trade piece. Always looking to add trade pieces. And the same thing with Trevor Story. Trevor Story is not going to be around until maybe July, maybe even later. But again, we are looking to add as many assets as we can. So if you guys add these 2 players with your final selection, then essentially you're getting 2 free ads to start the season. Let's look at that. So obviously, if you guys want more of a snapshot of kind of like how my drafts have always worked out in the past, this is pretty much the players that I've come away with every single time with repetition. And you guys already understand how to use the cheat sheet, but just in case this is your first time with Fantasy Baseball on Deck, I want to bring you up to speed. The green with bold and cyan. There's 3 levels of green. This is a player that I absolutely cannot leave the draft without. I have to come away with Austin Riley. He was had the second most total bases in all of Major League Baseball this past year. I think he's the most underrated. Him and Aaron Nola essentially like the most underrated players for their respective positions in the entire league. Julio Urias is just bold green with nothing else beside him. That just means that I think that he's an especially good deal for where he's at in the draft based on past or expected productivity. Next, if we look down here at Max Fried is just simply green. He's not bolded, but given the track record and the upside looking forward, I think that it's a good deal. Not necessarily a great deal, but a good deal. And then if you go to gold, if you see gold or yellow, essentially they're the same thing. This is a player that's a but situation. So like George Springer is an incredibly explosive individual now going into his 33, 34-year-old season. He's always relied on his athleticism, power, and speed to kind of be a differentiator over his peers. But going into these years, I kind of expect him to digress a little bit, but he's still, performing at a high clip when he's healthy. That's the thing. He's always kind of hurt, or he's going to miss 20 to 40 games a year, but when he's in, extra effective. If we look up at like Emmanuel Clase, obviously led the league in saves this past year, and he's going to do that again. Like the Indians are playing small ball, not necessarily by choice, but that's just kind of what the cards that they're dealt. Have really great pitching. They're going to be in a lot of close games. Clase is going to earn a lot of saves, but he's not necessarily the most lights out pitcher. He doesn't have a crazy, awesome K per 9, so he's not getting all those bonus strikeouts, but he's going to be in a position to succeed. And as long as he keeps his ERA down, he's going to be earning those bonus save points, but he's not as efficient as some of the others. And then if we go to like a Kyle Schwarber, again, who's the example on the screen with the red, he's a career like 193 hitter for his entire career, and every now and then he runs into a fastball that he hits 500 feet, and then he walks a lot. So every time that a player walks, essentially, that's just kind of you're becoming dependent on the guy behind you to get around the bases to earn any more points. He's not going to steal any base. This is kind of thing. So why I am highlighting someone red, I don't necessarily hate the person, or I do hate the person. I don't necessarily hate the person. I just think that they're overrated or not necessarily ranked where they should be at that point in the draft. So I've gone over this again. If you guys see that, hey, I was going after a shortstop in the first 40 picks, and they both, all of them are gone. All three of them that you love are gone. I can scroll down and see like, oh, not all is lost, but I really need to make sure that I bank for Jeremy Pena in the 181 through 200 slot. So this is how you use that chart over here. And the last thing that I want to talk about, and the value of making sure that you're making these moves up front in the beginning of the season to make the most of your roster. So if I am looking at my roster, I drafted Bryce Harper and I drafted Garrett Whitlock. My roster construction is a little different than yours. There's these like weird rules where we have to have relief pitchers. So I have starting relief pitchers. Drafted Garrett Whitlock on purpose, essentially giving me the opportunity to immediately slot him into my IL. And then obviously Bryce Harper immediately slot into my IL. I started out the season with 2 bench slots without Trevor Story because I didn't draft Trevor Story. But what you do is when you have an IL slot that is open and available, move these players that are either out or on the IL to your IL slot that opens up a roster spot. What you want to do then is you want to first scan, figure out how many IL spots you have, but you first want to scan across all of the available players. You want to look for like Liam Hendricks, the closer who's currently unfortunately fighting non-Hodgkin's lymphoma with the White Sox. You want to look for like players like Trevor Story, who's not going to be back until July. Frankie Montas signed a big contract with the New York Yankees, isn't healthy to start the season. If someone dropped Kyle Wright to start the year, he's only going to miss 2 weeks. Grab these guys that are valuable, but not going to be valuable for a little bit of time. Add them first, because when you add them to your roster, you essentially do the same thing. Just slot them into your IL and you have another spot to fill. It's not cheating, but it's maximizing your roster, in the ways that you need to sort of succeed, to make sure that you have as many assets maxed out as possible. You don't want to leave any stones unturned or any food on the table, essentially. So that is the end of my thoughts. And in regards to this draft coming up, I'm the number 5 slot. So my first move is going to be either Jose Ramirez, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., or Freddie Freeman, kind of depending on where things lie. And given that it's a 10-person draft, Pete Alonso has always been available at that number 24 position down here. Most likely for my second pick, making a little bit of a reach to make sure I get a first baseman. So I'd say that I haven't had Aaron Judge in any of my leagues so far. So, if Aaron Judge or even a Juan Soto falls to me, given that I have 5 outfield slots, I know that I can sort of recoup, but I'm not going to get into all that. That's my really quick rundown. Again, look for this link, this document will be in the comments as always. If you go to my, if you see another video and you want to reference this document ever again and kind of look back on it and learn along kind of how I evaluate batters, figure out what the true value is, starting pitcher, their true value, everything's in the same document, is saved onto my homepage. So basically click on my homepage, look for it in the link section or in the corner. It's pretty visible. So that is the end of very quick procrastination rundown with Austin at Fantasy Baseball and Beck. I wish you the best of freaking luck and happy baseball season, guys. I'm really excited. Love baseball. Okay, why did I start crying? Okay, bye.